to another episode of The Man Space. It is an absolute delight and honor for my co-host Marquese and I to join you week after week to have these important conversations you are sharing with us that you want to hear, that you want to be a part of. And please keep sending us the ideas, keep sending us the thoughts. And today, we are going to be talking about the importance of men getting engaged in community and community activity and becoming mentors and leaders shaping the society. Because traditionally, this role falls on women, and women tend to rally their men to these kind of activities and events. But it would be very interesting to see what would it take for men to start creating and rallying these events, especially at a time where men are feeling like they don't have a sense of belonging. And what better way to create that sense of belonging than lead these community activities and be community leaders to mentor the next generation coming up. So, Marquese, what are your thoughts? I know you've been involved in a lot of these community events and activities with your kids and by yourself lately. What are your thoughts as you hear this as our topic this week?
Thanks, Doc. One of the first thing that comes to mind is one, I want to acknowledge the men who are actively involved in community engagement. I have a few guys right now I can think of. You guys are constantly out there. You're going to the meetings. You are doing what you can. Keep doing it. But the impact is that's not enough. You are not enough by yourself. There needs to be myself and others to come on board to lead the charge, to lead the impact. There are a number of statistics that talk about the impact of men not being in the home. While we're not talking about fatherlessness in this context, it's the same context. When men are not leading the community, there's a certain set of parameters that won't come to fruition. One being how the men how the boys see themselves and their responsibility. Because if we're not there, then we're showing them it's not as important. And if we're not there and we're showing the women, or by abandoning the women and not being there, we're also letting them know that while it's important to them, it's not important to us. Therefore, in the grand scheme of things, its value, unquote, isn't esteemed. Why that is, I can't tell you, but I know psychologically, the role of the man is to reaffirm and validate the presence of the boy and the girl, the man and the woman. There's something about the masculine energy that helps set the tone as to what's true and encouragement while one's trying to find foundation. And that's at all ages, of course. But this is why constant mentorship and leadership is such a big deal. And at the same time, we want to acknowledge the women who are stepping in regardless. I was telling Dr. Kaz, I was at an event yesterday. It was the first annual National Kidney Party, started by Dr. Peggy Riggins. Her vision is to shut down dialysis centers around the country because people are being educated, people are being supported, finances are being raised, people who have received their kidney are being celebrated, people who are still waiting are being encouraged. And what dawned on me was, if she hadn't taken that charge and pulled on the men in her life, we wouldn't be there. So while I'm acknowledging we need more of our presence, what stuck out to me yesterday is I wouldn't have been there, not because I don't care. I mean, I don't care, not intentionally. But as men, we tend to be tunnel vision, focused on one thing. And because of that, I would have put it to the side, not understanding the big picture. As men, I don't know how many of this is true for all of us, but I know in many circumstances, we're all very tunnel visioned, and that's a good thing. Sometimes we need to be tunnel vision. But the phrase that we've heard before, we can't see the forest for the trees, I really resonated with yesterday as a man and with men, that's what happens to us from time to time. But the forest will always be there. And if we don't take care of the forest, that tree will eventually not exist. So it behooves us to start to find our place. And it's not sacrifice, it's responsibility to start partnering with the women who are leading and the men who are leading, even if it's for a short while. even if it's a 3-hour event for 1 hour. But there has to be our presence to show the generations coming up, this is what it looks like to be whole. This is what it looks like to heal. Because if we don't, we will have a continued breakdown that over time causes a community to shatter. It's not blaming, it's understanding and taking responsibility.
So as you're talking, Marquise, I love how you phrased that and you couched it in a real example. Where my mind went here is before we were colonized,
Yeah,
every society in its tribal community, men were leaders and their women were co-leaders.
that's right.
And with colonialism, men taken into doing things that produce profits,
Mm-hmm.
and the definition of work and impact tied to profit making,
Mm-hmm.
and the non-profit making roles that are not work, whether it's running a home, running a community, supporting the community, taking
Mm-hmm.
care of the elderly, taking care of the sick, all of that became unpaid work of women because there was no profit making for the masters. We're no longer in the colonial era,
That's right.
but we've never broken those cycles. And we also define work. I mean, how many people say my wife doesn't work? Well, if your wife
Yeah,
doesn't work, how do you get to work on time? How does your clothes get washed? How does your shoe get shined?
that's right.
How does food get on your table? Who
That's right.
washes your dirty clothes, right?
That's right.
So everybody, even women say, I don't work. Everybody's bought into this BS. And I wonder how much of that definition prevents men from going into these because these are women's work. It's not paid for, it's not masculine. I need to go and bring the bacon home, and this is not bringing the bacon. And the consequences of that is that men don't have a sense of belonging because they have never belonged to the community.
The other consequence behind that, Dr. Kaz, is we talked a little bit about this in the previous episode, so hopefully you guys go watch it. But when a man then is his employment is disrupted for any period of time for any particular reason, and or he is compared to another male who makes significantly more money, he's now lost, depressed, isolated from himself, and a sense of no identity, all of which is foolishness, but it's what happens to us. And now we have misaligned ourselves to the role that was given to us through colonialism. Your work and what you bring in defines who you are. That is the furthest from the truth.
Mhm.
Secondly, and equally as important, no man is an island unto himself. And your wife, your female partner, that feminine energy counterpart is your gift. And if you neglect it, no wonder your life falls apart and or you retire and die within 7 to 10 years because you had no existence in partner.
Mhm.
I think that is one of the most underrated things that we've talked about, Doc, is this idea, like we, both the men and the women in modern times, have been fed this notion that what you make determines who you are. And now the women don't want a man who doesn't make what they make, or they want a man to relieve them from a role they ascertain, but now they don't really want it because they want a man to take care of them. And the man is defined completely by what he makes or doesn't make. And if he makes a lot, then he thinks he's something even more, even though he's not contributing to the community. Or if he doesn't make enough, he doesn't feel like he's enough. And now he doesn't engage. There's a whole world of hoop surrounded around the identity of roles and revenue. They're not the same. I think you're exactly right, Doc. What a woman does, traditionally speaking, is equally as valued. It's a partnership. And without that partnership, no matter who is the financial breadwinner, the relationship can't work. The community has to fall apart. It's inevitable because following the colonial way, we've disassociated ourselves from the truth of who we are and what we bring. So we can't have intelligent conversations that can transform it and make things work collectively so that the community can thrive. And until we address that, the women don't want the men. So now they don't even have a man. The man won't take on a family or a woman because he doesn't feel like he's enough. And the only thing we're left with is a pile of mess unless we start having those meaningful dialogues about the need for each other and how does it work, not based on society, but based on what we need and where we are in the moment. Because Doc, I have a friend now, he used to be the breadwinner while his wife was home. They had 2 children. She's now, I think the youngest is probably 2 years old. She's since decided she wants to go back to work. So he left his job to come home and be the caregiver for their children. And it's working for them. It's working. So I think having those conversations, if we have those hard conversations, then we open up space for men to show up in the community events because he's no longer defined by if he's at work or his bread, but versus who he is and his role in society.
And I am so in alignment with what you just said, Marquise. And what people don't realize is we were intentionally isolated
Yes.
so that
Yeah.
we won't even be a function of family to look out
Yes.
for our best interest as a unit, right?
Yes.
Divide and conquer didn't happen just between different races and different colors. They did it within genders and within families of the
That's
same
right.
communities. So to me, this is an opportunity for men to step into their safety and security role, the provider role, right?
Yes. Yes.
Provide for the cohesion of the community,
Mm-hmm.
provide for the breaking of the cycle,
Mm-hmm.
and then show up as a cycle breaker. Because there's so much power and dignity in being a cycle breaker to
Mm-hmm.
then reshape the world that we want to see and give that safety and security to the sons and daughters in our community and thereby show up very differently. Because
Yeah.
women are not looking for men by the definition of providers just on money, because women
Mm-hmm.
have jobs now. They are also looking for men who can show up for the community, who can be those cycle breakers and who can break the norm and stand side by side and build anew. Because every career woman is a cycle breaker.
It's not only breaking the cycle, it's restoring balance. I love that you brought out the reality that the divide and conquer was so much more than race. It was for the destruction of the family unit as a whole by giving us names and roles that are not true to and domain germane to who we are. And we've got to have that. We've got to start that process. So men who may be listening to this and grappling with it, I want to invite you to a different space altogether. Drop what you think defines you as a man and get back to just being human. Start there. As you discover that and you begin to unpack all that you bring to the community, because if you're an amazing attorney and you're an amazing educator, but you're always working and you're not sharing that with the community, guess what? You're misusing or at least missing the mark on the potential of all that you are because you're unavailable. If you look at it from that angle, it might help you bridge that gap, but try to drop your role and think about your contribution. And if you're in a relationship, then have that conversation with your wife, with your feminine partner around, hey, here's my truth. How do we align it so that I get to do that? And what's your truth so that we get to align so you get to do that in a way that allows us to fully be present in our life experience versus the roles we've been given. And I think, Doc, you really opened something beautiful by reminding us a lot of what we're doing has been given to us, but it's not necessarily the truth.
Absolutely. And when we start going down the path you just outlined, Marquise, men have to stop and realize everything I think I'm doing to establish myself, I'm still working for the man. And I'm not working for me.
That's
I am
right.
building somebody else's brand. I am still somebody else's economic slave.
That's right.
And how do I stand in my own power and take my wisdom and my experience in my power and show up in my community to shape my community? When
Mm-hmm.
I do that, I'm doing it for me. I'm doing
Mm-hmm.
it for my family. I'm doing it for my people. But when
Yes,
I'm doing it for a job, I'm doing it for my master.
you're right, Doc. You're so right. Because if all I remember, I'm reminded of the story of Les Brown in this moment as an example. I remember the story, he's talking about how he had been on the circuit trying to get his first big payday. He had been working, he had been speaking for years, and then finally it happened. And I don't know if it was John Lester, his son, but it was one of his sons. He came to him and said, it finally happened. We've made it. We've done it. And his son responded and said, I don't care. I would rather you have spent more time with me. The reason I'm bringing that up is because as men, we have accepted the lie so much so that we think if we're providing, then that's enough. But the reality is that when we're not in the community, our children, unless they are able to reverse that, then they become as we are and they don't contribute either. It becomes more like what we see now: me, 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 me. And we all know if it's always about me, there will be no we. And that's how they've been able to keep us separated. That's how they've been able to disempower us, because we've lost sight of interdependence and the necessity of we.
And so community engagement and community activity is a perfect scenario for men to show up
Yeah,
and create a sense of belonging
that's right.
for other men and young men. Women have lots of organizations, lots of support groups. Men don't. And men are lonely. This is why, I mean, even simple things like because they don't have a community, they don't have a place to vent their emotion.
That's right.
So they end up doing things that gets them into jail.
That's right.
Whether it's violence at home, whether it's violence in the office, violence in the community. All of this is perpetrated by men because they don't have an outlet. They
That's
don't
right.
have a safe place and a space, and they don't know how.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's about time for us to create that space and invite men to join and then evolve in a way to lead, because men get to shape this narrative. We
Mm-hmm.
are no longer a colony.
That's right.
And even if our democracy is not 100% democratic, nobody gets to tell us what we can and cannot do. We get to choose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think also we label the harder side of the impact when men are lonely. Let's label the other side: white collar crimes, manipulation, and taking advantage of people heartlessly. Those things are equally as damaging, but they're a byproduct of men not being accountable in spaces where they're asked to show up as who they really are, including unaliving and suicide and all of those things. It behooves us, men, to be involved. It behooves us. It's for our benefit. Sorry for using that old word, that old English word. It's for our benefit as a whole, as a human, as an individual, to put ourselves in community,
Mhm.
because it gives us a space to be held accountable to our greatest height, as well as offer it. And when we're able to offer it, there's a there's a there is a sense of gratitude. There is a sense of fulfillment that comes, because not only are we taking, but we're offering in exchange who we are in a space that needs it. And that brings complete gratification, because it's a cycle of giving and receiving. And if we're not, then it makes it very difficult for us to have a fulfilled experience as a man. And no wonder we end up isolated, where only 15% of us have someone we can call a confidant.
Absolutely. It's hard for men because they don't build those relationships, right?
That's right.
And it's hard because they are so busy chasing the material.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know how to be present for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't know to read for themselves their own presence. And so this also calls into question something else: the way we talk about these things. You use the word unaliving. We use the term disingenuous or not being truthful. Why
Mm-hmm.
don't we call a lie? And
You know,
why
the
are we
unalive. Yeah.
changing language? And
Yeah.
similarly, that poor girl got raped. The man who raped her is not even in that sentence. Or she went and got herself pregnant. Well, if she could get herself pregnant, she could have done so many other things too. Where is
Yeah.
the man in this? So
Yeah.
we allow men to be removed from the conversation,
Yeah.
even in the way we phrase these things.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, Doc, it's so interesting because when we look at media, we it favors whoever it needs to favor in the moment. And I think we do need to be far more direct in our conversation. We can't change media, but to your point, we can be very clear about what we are doing in our conversation. One of the things I love about my father is if he meets someone that I'm bringing that I say I'm interested in, if one of the first things he will say is, "What do you want with my son? What is your interest with him?" And his responsibility there then comes back to me. What do you want with her? What is your intention? Because he's wanting both parties to fully show up. And we've got to be willing to do that in our negotiations and our conversations, while at the same time, to your point, taking responsibility, both the man and the woman, so that we can have real conversations. Unless we do that, it's equally as difficult. What I found in the narrative is that if it protects one group, then they blame the woman. If it endangers another group, then they blame the man. While that, again, that narrative we can't control, I like what you said. We can control what we're talking about, and we need to be far more direct to help one another take accountability and responsibility for how we are showing up or not. Not to embarrass, but to bring balance to the conversation so that we can find solutions that is meaningful to the good of us all.
Yeah. To show up with integrity
Yeah.
and speak the truth and be factually accurate
That's right.
instead of using language
That's
for
right.
subverting the conversation,
That's
right?
right. Yeah. You're
Because
exactly right.
otherwise we are constantly creating an environment where women are in the community and men are not. And everything that happens in the community, oh, she did that to herself. She did that to herself.
Mm-hmm.
And then she's gaslit for showing up and being there. And
Mm-hmm.
that becomes the problem. Or if he challenges a male who did something,
Mm-hmm.
then it's a reaction that is bad, not
Yeah.
the person who did that. So we're creating so many layers of this conflict. But if men showed up in their protective nature in the community as
Mm-hmm.
the builder, as the shaper, as the
Mm-hmm.
leader, right?
Mm-hmm.
How much stronger can the community be?
There'd
And
be
how
nothing
much
like it.
more sense of belonging is the man going to build?
That's
And when
right.
he starts his own business, he already has his market. He
That's
doesn't
right.
need to go build his brand
That's right.
because he's already built his presence.
That's right. That's so good, Doc. We can do that. Doc, I want to throw something out to our audience. What are some of the ways you have seen and are practicing on how you can show up? And what are some of the ways in which you would like some advice or discourse around how you can show up given your current circumstances? One of the things I've run into when I'm coaching execs and regular people as well is I don't have enough time. To that, I say this: look around at what you're going to work for, the things. What are the things you absolutely don't need that you could put on Facebook Marketplace, that you could give away, that you could put in the trash? Because they are keeping you occupied from the value that you truly bring to the planet and the community, because you're out trying to take care of those things in the name of being a man. But the reality is they're preventing you from your true manhood and its manifestation because it's keeping you occupied on the things that don't matter. Granted, I know we live in America. I know we are a perverted capitalistic society where we are completely out of balance. But if we don't change that, if we're not willing, then we didn't do our part on the planet, period. Period. And I know in our societies, sometimes it doesn't matter because we're taught to be self, self, self. But if you look around, the self, self, self matter, it doesn't work long term. And eventually, someone in your home, your family, your lineage will be a victim because you didn't show up.
Yeah. Mhm. And the simple truth to remember, if you had all the money and everything material in the world and you collapsed in your house, is anybody in the community going to miss you to come looking for you and call 911?
Yeah, I know.
That simple question. Ask that simple question of yourself every day. What
Yeah,
have I done today to build a community around me and
yeah,
be there for somebody? The old Greek proverb, a wise man plants a tree and grows it. knowing that he will never stand in the shade.
It's
What are
good.
you doing to be that wise man?
It's good. And the last thought I want to leave is this. Men, stop lying to yourself. Buying more stuff, making more money doesn't make you more of a man. It means you're just being used that much more. Take time, make your money. I am all about it. Believe me, because you can do more good. I'm doing the same thing. But don't lose your identity and responsibility in the context of community. That's all I got.